How's it going, folks? Jack here with another reaction, here to check out some more Total Warhammer 3 goodness that you have recommended to me. This time it's from the Grim Kleaper. I hope that I'm pronouncing this name correctly, and also I love every single individual whose avatar is a literal plague doctor. Great. As long as you're not threatening anybody with a circumcision knife, that's good. That's a Hitman 2016 reference for those who didn't get that. But this video here is on making a one-man army in Total Warhammer, and that is a harder feat than one may think. I've tried to do that a few times on Immortal Empire. It's not easy. Done that with Scarbrand because obviously you want to take one of the stronger units, and perhaps that's gonna work. No, it doesn't.
Scarbrand dislikes being misinterpreted.
I had better luck rolling with China or Grand Cafe than just pure brute strength. Now, I do not know who he's going to be using here, so I'm kind of excited to see what tactics may be employed here. But first and of course, come back and watch the reaction.
Who would win? Every known being in the universe or a gun? Total Warhammer 3 is a massive game with over 275 factions. And
good old pirates.
All of them, by declaring war on every single nation from turn 1. And what better way to do it than with the strongest magical spell ever invented, gun. As a fleet of undead pirates, the Vampire Coast boasts nothing but powder, cannons, and the doctrine of manifest destiny, all led by Count Noctilus von Washington, founding father and author of the Second Amendment. Now, Count Noctilus is a very special lord, because he is the only character to start in the middle of nowhere.
Which is actually kind of smart. As I recall, every single time that you have to cross the sea to reach the galleon's graveyard, you are suffering hell of a lot of damage. So I will suppose that any person whom you declare war with, who is trying to get to you, because they eventually do, is gonna reduce the numbers. Which perfect for Vampire Coast, as they are just going to accumulate those numbers into their ranks.
Capital, the galleon's graveyard, is completely isolated in the ocean, so for right now, we're safe. But make no mistake, the AI can and will send armies here, so that won't last very long. To declare war on every single faction, I'm using an advanced technique called doing it manually. Using a console command mod, I can reveal all factions for diplomacy. Now, this doesn't give us any practical advantage, it just means I can talk with any faction, so I'm able to declare war on them. I also turned on endgame crises, including the newly added Vermintide. So while I'm starting World War III, some ground rules for the campaign. Rule number 1, I must be at war with every faction and must immediately declare war if I meet a new one. Throughout the game, new rogue armies, horde factions, and rebellions will end up spawning, that I don't have vision of. But as soon as I see them, rule number 2, I cannot make peace unless I declare war immediatly after, meaning our peace treaties are just scams to extort money. And
right. That's the right way to do it.
Lastly, rule number 3, play War Thunder? Wait, I didn't write that. The sponsor of this video, War Thunder, where committing military atrocities has never been more fun. Channel the power of God, anime, and over 2,000 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships on PC, Xbox, or the PS5. Fight for the honor of your great leader with Chinese tanks, or the bellowing might of the Italian Navy. With every vehicle modeled down to each component, you'll know what it means to truly War Thunder. As the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, it's historically accurate down to even the smallest Japanese decal. And if you're less hardcore like me, don't worry, there's options. The only thing this game is missing is civilians. So play War Thunder this
and document security. They are also missing that, which great news for anybody who watched some of the reactions that I made to the Russian Badger, which was a bit more related to World of Warships, but I guess it also affects this one to a certain degree. Red Lobster is going bankrupt! Yeah, Badger did a whole thing with the lobster ship, so anybody who has any affiliation with Red Lobster as a possible means of calling their army / product / decal that, you can do it now and have no fear of retaliation.
Nanosecond using the link in the description or pinned comment below to get free stuff. And if you don't, just remember, I'm watching. With all of that said, let's get back to things, because I would like to formally welcome you to hell. The fruitful result of me spending over an hour just declaring wars. You know things are serious when you have 5 save games and it's still turn 1. After declaring war on the final faction, our wars list was this. And just like that, I've destroyed pretty much all hope of world peace or the UI working as intended, which leaves just one thing left to do. Fight 275 factions. Well, kill me. Zombies are pretty awful. Give a zombie a gun and they'll probably miss. But give 100 zombies a gun and now they'll still probably miss. The Vampire Coast mostly consists of deceased rednecks with floating trailers, but Count Noctilus starts with a special unit, the Necrofex Colossus. These walking boats are icons of American ingenuity and are the hard carry of our army. But to get more, we need money. Unfortunately, being at war with everyone, holding on to more than just one settlement isn't possible, at least for now. Luckily, most factions are too busy doing their own thing to fight us at the beginning, so our first turns need to be spent preparing for the inevitable 16 armies showing up at my door faster than a Jehovah's Witness. The Vampire Coast also has a horde mechanic that works with Noctilus.
I'm sorry, but that is so true. And literally, if she has the Sword of Cain, which she does so many freaking times, she will fuck you up.
I will kill you right here!
First target to go after, and also Loftus Gavens there depicted as playing Minecraft, because they do.
Allowing him to build and upgrade his ship, functioning like a mobile settlement. At max level, the ship gets powerful bonuses, but it costs multiple black market kidneys to get there. Although as respectable gentlemen, we have a few options to make that money. We could sail to the islands and wrecks around the ocean for treasure, or just steal it. Sacking coastal settlements requires targets and enemies, of which there was no shortage. Green represents friendly land. Guess what red is? It's already turned 7, and the first AI has sailed into absolutely nowhere to try to attack us. But one of the big positives we have being in the middle of nowhere is that for people to sail to us, they take attrition on the sea. Not like that stops the AI or these random ogres dying. Unsurprisingly, our first turns are mostly just upgrading our capital, horde buildings, and resurrecting more units. As an undead faction, we do have necromancy, meaning we instantly resurrect units, scaling based on how many have died in the area. More
Exactly what I imagined was going to happen.
More casualties equals more plentiful and powerful recruits. On turn 10, I decided to step 1 foot outside of our base.
Hello again.
What a great idea. The armies we're fighting are either multiple 20 stacks or a homeless guy. By turn 15, Arkan got bored and left, so we sailed to a nearby Skull Island, able to auto-resolve a fight that really doesn't look like we should win, and still get a cool 20,000 gold. To make even more money, we sailed over to Lustria near all the port settlements, because instead of occupying cities, we can establish pirate coves. These function as mini settlements, allowing us to siphon income from their owner. So despite only having one settlement, we could still scale our economy to afford more units. Moving out to the northern cities, it's important to remember that being on land is an absolute nightmare. Case in point, that is a lot of naked green men. Now for reference, we have almost no melee units. We really just have 1,601 guns. Something cool is that by upgrading our ship, we get cannon barrages as army abilities. Slightly better is the walking Colossus shooting his hand cannon like a SoundCloud rapper. The only issue is that it runs out of ammo quickly, but our gunnery whites can give it more. Despite us having nothing but rusty guns and decomposing soldiers, apparently that's all we need. That and Noctilus eating several thousand damage and almost dying, I don't think we had any business winning that. We did lose our depth guard, but gunnery mobs are both cheaper and comparatively better. With all the casualties taken, a necromancy site was created, so we could resurrect more units if we ever came back. But right now, our army was pretty solid with mostly gunners. So by now, we'd reached turn 22, mostly unharmed, despite the fact that over 100 factions have already died. While that sounds like a good thing, when enough land gets conglomerated by the AI, the only enemy they'll have left to attack is us. Like with this random Empire 20 stack, the first of many. From now on, Noctilus's new job is to run in circles and probably get shot, which when considering our levels of freedom output, actually works pretty well. After each fight, we can use Invocation of Nehek to cheese extra healing, making sure Noctilus ends each battle with full health. To get some extra gold, I can do a little diplomatic shenanigans by making fake peace treaties. It's like a business deal, except there is no business, there is no deal, and we threaten you with a gun. The funny part is, despite being at war with a lot of these factions, our relations are actually improving with them. For more money, we sailed to a few shipwrecks and recruited a vampire fleet captain. As fighting units, they're pretty useless, but on the campaign map, they can establish more pirate cities.
Res through plunder? Sure, makes total sense.
Throwing one in Lothern, our coves were beginning to look like femboys in Cambodia, a massive driver of GDP. Of course, the elves don't really like being robbed, as is pretty evident. With Ulthuan being so unfriendly, we found somewhere else a bit more welcoming, the peasant pits of Bretonnia. And of course, within one turn of being on land, unfortunately for them, I have a bit of a surprise. A pretty small cannon called Queen Bess. The AI might be good at dodging, but as soon as their archers stand still, plus, our gunnery wet can give it pretty much unlimited ammo. The rest of their army was as formidable as their leader. They too walked directly into 6,000 bullets and died. Through the entire battle, Noctilus gained health? Now, winning against the Fey Enchantress is pretty important, because then we get her legendary defeat trait, plus 10% casualty replenishment. These traits exist for each legendary lord in the game, with all of them being unique, and some of them are enormously powerful, but scattered around the world. While there are a ton of these lords and traits, we mainly care about two, Sigvald and Marcus. Both have traits that improve Noctilus's army, and make him a living tank. So
Oh, Sigvald, that's the dragon guy, right? Right? Isn't he? Sigvald... oh no. Sorry. Sigvald the Magnificent. That's a Slaneshi guy. I was thinking of Emmerich. Emmerich is also a prince. Both princes, doesn't matter. The other one rides dragons. One has a shield and a spear. Shield and a sword, the other one has a spear and a dragon. Mixing my characters here.
The goal of our current campaign is to beat each of them in battle with his army. Getting back to the pirating, as Noctilus sailed around, our capital got attacked. While this army might look really scary, well, that's because it is. Defending the Maelstrom for the very first time. Ah, home sweet home. Something special among the Vampire Coast is aquatic units. Pretty much everything we have fights better in the water. Despite the enemy having heavily armored black orcs, our gunners do not really care, allowing us to win the battle with relatively few casualties. Still, our capital was mostly undefended, so I recruited our first army 30 turns into the game. To reinvigorate those zombie tax dollars, we could pay a little visit to Eltharion. Oh, never mind. There he is. One of his armies did walk into an ambush, letting us test our new cannons. By upgrading Noctilus's ship, we gain even more of those map-wide cannon shots. We'd also given Noctilus the ability to summon more units, which unsurprisingly also have guns. Ah, I love summoning gunners right in their face. Which is helpful considering his ability to beat the crap out of people. While Noctilus winning is nice, yeah, why am I not surprised that this is what my capital looks like? While Eltharion's army is better in every way, defending on a hill gives our guns more leeway. Eltharion led the charge, foolishly believing I wouldn't shoot my own units. Our local pirate captain could also summon the pride of our fleet, giant undead crabs, circle beating Eltharion to death. Alright, killing another elven 20 stack isn't bad. And another. And another two. I sure would love for Noctilus to come help if he wasn't running from wood elves in the ocean. The only positive is that we'd recruited a renowned admiral, allowing us to switch our second army's leader to one with his own horde and shipbuildings. Alright, so I'm gonna do my best to cheese this one using the help of the AI. By turning off control large army, that means only 20 units can enter the battle at once, but by making this an AI controlled army, we get 40 and they only get 20. So even though their reinforcements are already here, they can't summon anyone else because they're at their 20 out of 20 cap. But for us, well, because ours is an AI-controlled army, we just get everything. Despite our overwhelming numbers, we are also overwhelmingly incompetent, with extreme inefficiency because our army is quite literally falling apart. With the first army swarm, we barely pulled out a victory on the reinforcing second, resulting in a huge number of corpses. How many, you might ask?
I don't know.
Necromancy. It's always the answer.
I never counted, you know.
To clear the remaining armies, Noctilus sailed back to the capital, taking out another 20 stack and earning a new mount. That house-sized Jumanji-looking ship we have, yeah, now he rides it. Oh, hey there, Tyrion. Couldn't see you down there. Tyrion's legendary defeat trait was a nice bonus, adding army-wide melee attack. But what scared me a little bit more was Alariel the Radiant, or more aptly named, Alariel the Psychopath. Whenever I play Immortal Empires, there's 3 things that are always guaranteed.
Yes! I fucking called it. There we go.
Dies by turn 5, Tzeentch is a massive asshole, and Alariel the Radiant winds up whipping out the Sword of Cain and...
If you see that guy, associate it. Cain is on his way.
going on a genocidal rampage. Slay, girl boss. The Sword of Cain is a unique melee weapon. Anyone sociopathic enough to claim it gets ungodly combat bonuses, army clearing vortex spells, and a general tendency to kill everyone. The longer a user has the Sword of Cain, the stronger it becomes. If we let Alarielle use the sword uncontested, the problem is that she'll be too powerful to beat later. So our plan to stop her, the diplomatic approach. Invading Ulthuan. To get some war funding, we could channel our inner Jack Sparrow and navigate a series of treasure maps. You know, it's stuff like this that makes the game special. This level of thought and love, I really appreciate it. But not as much as I appreciate the dude who posted all the answers online. Approaching the Supreme Elven Donut, we were intercepted by the great Penny Cox. Luckily,
That's actually a very good point. I'm currently playing Manor Lord, which is a game that reminded me a lot of, well, not the game itself, but the way that I have approached this game reminded me a lot of like classic WoW. The good old days where we didn't exactly have every single forums and every single answer at hand, where you could just look up a YouTube video that will show you exactly how you should complete a quest or whatever. There were guides to reach out to certain things, and it's kind of weird that I kind of lost this skill to a certain degree, but I'm still maintaining it with other types of games, but just not with strategy games. Because like with action RPGs, the likes of Elden Ring or even Dragon's Dogma that I'm currently going through here once more, is that you can go through these games, finish them within like 10 hours of gameplay and be like, something's missing here. And just the sheer fact of you lacking something is what is going to motivate you to want to understand more. With this type of games, you quite literally cannot advance or finish or complete anything unless you have a guide. Especially when you put yourself in limitations with this type of challenges.
Miss Cox was dispatched without losing a single unit, allowing us to breach the shores of Ulthuan. Sieging Val's Anvil and Tor something, we took our first settlement to the game, speeding ahead by turn 51. Occupying pieces of the island, unsurprisingly, drew some unwanted attention. Alarielle was only at war with one faction. Gee, who could that be? And with her upgrading Sword of Cain, it was time to spread those cheeks, not to mention the other 7 armies surrounding us. Luckily, in trying to kill one of them, a failed ambush, so we could lightning strike to fight only one enemy. I like that our army embraces those traditional values, recreating the atmosphere of the Waffle House. With the ambush foiled and another army obliterated, it was time. She had arrived. Bringing both of our best armies, Alarielle sat at nearly 1,000 weapon strength, hypersonic speed, and the tankiness of a character from the hit game, Viva Pinata.
Don't hit me with your spade.
We'd have to fight her now before the Sword of Cain got any more powerful. Loading into the battle, we have 2 minutes to set up before she arrived, and with our 40 groups of gunners, I formulated a plan. Shoot her. In about 3 hits, she almost killed Noctilus, took out a few hundred infantry, and had learned to metal bend bullets into her skin. Oh great, it looks like their entire army routed. Not Alarielle. After more than 20,000 bullets, she finally went down, taking 350 people with her and nearly killing all our heroes.
Holy shit. God damn, yeah, she truly is a girl boss. Alarielle, because she's worth it.
But her tyrannical rule could come to an end, letting us free the Sword of Cain for the sake of peace, global happiness, and mostly greed. I wouldn't say freed, more like under new management. So how does power beyond comprehension feel? Okay.
Pretty great.
I will keep that in mind. Higher combat stats, a tornado in a jar, and now everybody in the world hates us slightly more than a warm pillow. As Noctilus holds the sword for longer, the buffs get better and the debuffs get worse. The generic problem with wielding the sword is that it'll eventually make everybody declare war on you, but for us, that's not a problem, it's a feature. With Alarielle wounded, it was a huge weight off our chest. Of course, that's like moving a boulder off a mountain. She may be gone, but they certainly aren't. The stage 1 Sword of Cain is fine. Running Noctilus into the enemy army alone is not the best idea. Yet. It's also important to remember that these gunners are tier 1 units, fighting much stronger armies. To really get Noctilus's army into late game shape, it would need an upgrade. And infantry, don't cut it. But that Necrofex Colossus we have, now that's not terrible. Because the upgrade isn't cheap and the High Elf capital just happens to be nearby, I necromanced a... is that a word? Necromance?
Yeah, well,
I
you
necromanced
can.
a completely new force, and with all the battle sites around, pulling an entire army out of my ass is surprisingly lubeless. With 4 armies to the north, it was clear we couldn't hold on to our settlements for long. Surrounding Val's Anvil were lizardmen, dark elves, and a forgettable little faction, willingly taking attrition and led by a man named Melwyn. But the only thing blocking Lothern was King Lewin. and this random gaggle of elves. There's something so
Nuked.
satisfying about watching a giant undead ship just blow away entire armies. I mean, I didn't even notice they had a sun dragon. It just died anyways. Wow, nice fire. Bringing 2 armies to the gates of Lothern, we fought a grand siege using auto-resolve, and then stole 25,000 gold. Now all we have to do is Alarielle, round 2, Kung Fu. Panda is a very good movie. Alarielle may have better units, but we have the sheer unwashed masses. Well, this is 3 armies against 1. All our units are extremely injured, and Alarielle's army wasn't the only one nearby. The plan was basically abuse Wind of Death, our army cannons, and use Noctilus as a meat shield. For the rest of the campaign, we're going to be seeing a lot of this spell. Escaping into the ocean, it was clear we need to abandon our settlements at Gucci Island and regroup back at the capital to spend that elven gold on a really big boat, and the ability to recruit more Necrofex Colossi. Now, normally these Colossi are absurdly expensive, with almost 500 upkeep per turn, so a whole army of them would probably collapse our fragile economy. But as a savvy American, Noctilus has mastered the age-old art form known as minimum wage, granting a 20% reduction in upkeep. When we combine that with another 20% for level 5 Horde, minus 23 from skills, minus 15, minus 10, and minus 8, we get a grand total of 96% upkeep reduction, meaning it's more expensive to upkeep this than this. So while we're recruiting, let's take a step back and look at the world so far. Right now, Ulthuan is pretty much owned by Tyrion and Alarielle, but what about everyone else? To the northwest, we have Malekith and Marathi, the Dark Elves, weirdly losing against the exiled Tomb Kings, and
the weird guy and his equally weird mom. Hot Topic family.
Beatbox champion Katak. Beneath that, in Lustria Conquest, our first mission was to completely occupy Ulthuan. As a giant island in the sea, it's both easy to defend and gets avoided by most of the endgame crises. Taking our very first steps onto land. Okay, see, now this is a crushing defeat. A 1v3 coupled with injured units, a scary enemy lord, and being outnumbered 179 to 1.
Tyrion!
Not favored in this fight whatsoever.
I'm sorry. Every single time that I see him, I cannot avoid but bringing Tyrion Fordrin from Warcraft into this. They're both iconic, okay? Except that one has an actual flaming sword and the one is a paladin with, like, issues.
Okay, Tyrion, I hope you know what you bargained for. While Tyrion sat there and just got shot, we sent Noctilus in completely alone. Not very fair for them. One hit with our big stick diplomacy and their HP is gone. Great as it might seem like it's going, it wasn't very long until all our Necrofex were fighting in melee, where they kinda suck. The only positive is that they drop zombie summons to protect them at half health, but Tyrion is a little too good at fighting them for it to matter. Alright, we're down to pretty much just 3 Necrofex Colossus, Noctilus, and a whole lot of summons.
Oh,
right,
no.
Make that 2 Colossus. Just when I thought it was over, Noctilus barely killed Tyrion through the crowd. Surrounded by hundreds of elves, he was quite literally too angry to die. We summoned more zombies and used our sword's vortex over and over. After 10 minutes of grinding in a mosh pit of scrawny elves, the balance of power went back in our favor. At the low cost of our entire 30,000 gold army, we pulled out a win, with Noctilus killing 800 people on his own. Through the sheer will of one banana-chinned man with a sharp stick, the campaign could continue. By winning, we also triggered our undead passive, resurrecting a few of our colossi, and since we defeated every defending army at once, that left their settlements open. Marching up to Vol's Anvil, Noctilus would face his toughest opponent yet, Door.
Doesn't work, buddy.
Sieging a settlement on his own. Right. Just by claiming our first settlement on Ulthuan, again, that didn't exactly resolve everything. Welcome to the capital. It sucks here. I have spent far too many—
I'm sorry, that should not have been that funny. What the fuck? Oh, holy shit. Gotta watch it again.
Sieging a settlement on his own. Yeah, that sounds about right. Just by claiming our first settlement on Ulthuan, again, that didn't exactly resolve everything. Welcome to the capital. It sucks here. I have spent far too many hours fighting on this exact map. All the while, our population was getting war-weary. Don't worry guys, just a few more turns. Alariel was also back and sizing us up, forcing me to use my new special unit, the Gallows Giant. It's like a normal Colossus, but with some minor modifications. Back in the capital, we fought off these surrounding fleets, earning us the first verse of a lost sea shanty. Random fleets around the ocean have these, and getting them gives us an army-wide ability to shoot even faster.
The only thing I hear in pretty much all these battles is just constant firing of cannons, because that is our ranged attack and our melee attack.
With all our expansion, I recruited a 4th lord. See how we're making money right now? Well, say goodbye to our positive income, because from this point forward, the name of the game is deficit spending. On our way to Lothern, we got intercepted by 4 whole armies. It was not a very hard fight. We're basically at the point where Noctilus's army beats everything so long as it's attacking, because we can lightning strike to lock out reinforcements. At the end of each battle, we get to use the Lore of Vampires magic to heal back, so we can effectively fight unlimited armies every turn. But the one thing that can make Noctilus even stronger, a better Sword of Cain. We can either choose to throw it away, sparing the world of its destruction, or keep it, causing faction-wide upkeep increases, public order loss, and Noctilus going completely insane. However, bigger sword, putting us at a whopping 1.1k weapon strength. So when arriving to siege Lothern, we sent Noctilus in alone yet again. My old nemesis.
Door.
Breaking into the city, there's a little unique trick we can use. Our main vortex spell, Wind of Death, is actually a ping pong ball. Within cities, we can bounce it off buildings to hit the same enemy multiple times. The result is a silly little 801 kills and the Great Sack of Lothern, 20,000 gold, and a whole lot of anti-humanitarian crime.
He is the
or at least
army.
it would be if I thought elves were people. Our empire now encompassed a small section of Ulthuan, afforded by Noctilus's army, leaving every battle having healed instead of taking damage. Our limit was more so every other army, having to defend what Noctilus conquered from an elf whose greatest weakness was a school zone. More important than the Landol was finding Marcus Wolfheart. As I said a while ago, the 2 legendary lords we wanted to fight were Sigvald and Marcus, with one of them in front of us right now. The Lizardman army was more than ready to do nothing, while Marcus came in as reinforcements.
It's the flight of the Eagles, except the Eagles are going up against 18 anti-aircraft guns.
It didn't take long for Noctilus to find Marcus and win in 2 hits, gaining us
Sure.
his legendary defeat trait, increased range damage for everyone. Our next target would be Sigvald, because his trait will make Noctilus unkillable, but because he lives deep in the Chaos Waste, we'd have to wait until we could reach him. In the meantime, our armies expanded, recruiting famous admirals like William Bootycatcher, and our current second mate, Burke Black, who was busy taking the gates protecting Inner Ulthuan. We'd also researched a special banner, which gives 20% ward save, or damage reduction. Combining that with the Sword of Cain's 35% ward save, and a random amulet's 8%, Noctilus was rocking a solid 63% damage reduction, which effectively more than doubles his health. With all the new land we'd gained, we could afford new armies and keep conquering Ulthuan, so long as foreign powers didn't intervene. But at turn 87, it's not like anyone had a reason to mess with us.
Zinch. Naturally.
I figured, maybe they're pretty close, like near my capital or something. No, they are not. Halting our faction burned the entire turn, getting several cities sacked and sending us back a little. But not every demon is a complete douche, because directly to the north of us was Be'lakor. In a campaign where we are at war with everyone, Be'lakor is probably the closest thing we have to an ally. I ignore him, he ignores me, and we both burn down
So far.
Ulthuan. He even graciously let me take a free gate, and before I could repay the favor, conveniently disappeared. But in taking the gate, it revealed a new friend, Malekith, internet edgelord and incestual enthusiast.
Yeah.
Back in the main part of Ulthuan, we'd begun sieging the last resistance inside the island. After fighting 3 consecutive lightning strike battles, Tyrion City was exposed, which we conquered using the ancient art of waiting for them to starve. Elsewhere, Burke Black took another from Alariel, Orion rammed his head into a garrison, and we got a quest for the final verse of our sea shanty with some of the best bonuses I have ever seen. But even with the shanty that doubles our fire rate, most of our armies weren't very strong. Zombie gunners and polearms are objectively terrible units, even if they are cost efficient. And we couldn't just auto-win with Noctilus because his army can't be everywhere. Although we did get a special ancillary for a ship's carpenter, minus 50% horde building costs for a single army. Except you can move ancillaries around, instantly, at any time, to any lord. Yeah. So after several turns of upgrading, Burke Black is dead. And in his place rises a new admiral, Man with Crabs. Because Necrofex Colossi aren't the only endgame unit. At the same tier are Rotting Leviathans, and after recruiting a few, my income was hit by a Red Lobster delivery truck. But it did allow us to bully a L'Oreal, and any amount of money is worth that. Plus, this is only 4 crabs. It only gets worse from here. Bringing a L'Oreal down to her last settlement, we were also able to obtain our final shantyverse, doubling reload speed, giving mass leadership, and plus 15 public order map wide. So instead of enacting governmental change, we're just singing sea shanties. Congress, take notes. On Noctilus's side of the island, he demolished about 420 stacks in a single turn, chopped down Durthu, and wrestled control over most of Ulthuan, even eradicating Alariel's faction. Despite mostly dealing with the High Elves, we now had to deal with these slightly more sober elves. Noctilus was busy sieging one of the major High Elf settlements, blocking the rest of their land, although apparently shooting cannons at walls is surprisingly precise. For whatever reason, they keep sending out one unit at a time to duel Noctilus. Eventually, after wiping out most of their single
you can tell where it is that they actually just, which is fair, just taking assets from old games, but actually did not adjust them for destructibility, because that's literally a thing that you did in Total Warhammer 2. Like, at least similar measures were shown where some parts were just hanging in midair.
Entities, I got bored. Right now is pretty much the grindy part, fighting unlosable lightning strike battles and reclaiming settlements, so I'll skip ahead to turn 110. In just a few short turns, we have grown, but not alone. The old world is almost completely ruled by Dwarves, Empire, and Cathay, which would be fine if they weren't all allies. Empire ships were already showing up at Ulthuan, and Malekith was ready to get goofier than a moist critical police chase. A silver lining was that the High Elves are dead. With one last fight against Lothern, we'd removed all High Elves from Ulthuan, but other enemy armies were pretty much everywhere, requiring me to sail out and fight several Dwarf armies per turn. In summary, things are bad. Our armies had also hit the campaign movement limit. Because we have so many movement bonuses, there's no difference between march stance and default stance. So apparently these peg legs run off rocket fuel. On the less horrible side, we were forcing Chaos and Bellicor from the island. Our income was not negative, and Crabman had acquired more crabs. They may be heavily armed, but we are heavily legged. I guess you could say we beat the crab out of them.
That was funny.
Not to mention, the crabs are auto-resolve gods. I don't even need to fight this to destroy both armies. Meanwhile, Noctilus's army has the weakest auto-resolve I have ever seen. Oh, a small Bretonnian garrison, crushing defeat, forcing me to manually fight almost every battle with his army, but winning this one meant we could make landfall in the old world with our very first settlement. By being in the old world, Noctilus could draw aggro from most armies, allowing us to freely boot every other faction off Ulthuan and essentially secure the whole island. Advancing further and taking Castle Bashtone, we'd cleared out most of the resistance from Bretonnia. 3 whole Empire armies. If only there were a button that let me beat all of them in the same turn. Army 1, meet the deadly Luminarch of Hysh. In only a few shots, it can take down a Necrofex easily, which is exactly why I decided meleeing Noctilus was somehow smart. Look at this disgusting Empire smut. Not in my Christian server. Moving on to Army 2, we were faced with the immovable steam tank. Army 3, Karl Franz. Karl looks like he has not slept in at least a week. Starting the battle, I figured it would be pretty easy. Noctilus walks over, beats down Franz, and we get to important stuff, like paying off our debt. But much like my student loans, Karl Franz is soul-crushingly strong. Oh my god. Karl is over 1k weapon strength, 85... Wait, he's got better stats than Noctilus. Jesus, that might not seem like a lot of damage, but with Noctilus's 80% physical resistance, that means Karl did something like 8,000 damage in about 10 seconds. Luckily, his decision to fly away was tactically poor by Karl.
Yeah, that Griffin
didn't take long
did.
after that to expand in the old world, lining the entire ocean in some sort of vampire coast. But our struggle wasn't over quite yet, because panning to the west, hello Marathi, bringing 3 armies plus a garrison to the front, losing this fight meant losing the whole western side of the island. Now there is no actual way we fairly win this. Marathi's armies are absolutely juiced with dragons, Medusa, and Hydras. So we have to do the next best thing. I'm gonna cheat. Using the AI-controlled army trick, we could have all 80 of our units fighting 20 of theirs at a time. Alright, and the tables have turned ever so slightly, as you can see the number go up. Outnumbering them 8-1, it didn't take long for the entire battlefield to be swarmed by Walmart tier undead, who were literally born yesterday. I really wish I could describe in better detail what was actually happening, but
All I know is we've already lost 1,000 units, and the battle's not been going on
The
for
Waffle
very
House
long.
experience.
Jesus Christ, their lord is still alive, and she has 405 kills. Not to mention Marathi landed once,
Ooh.
and she has been stuck here for the entire mission. With the first enemy reinforcements coming in, we still had to fight 2 whole other armies, but our saving grace was a spell called Van Geist's Revenge, summoning the Flying Dutchman to obliterate their best units. That one shot alone netted 400 kills. You know things are bad when you outnumber them 1,700 to 14 and you're losing. With the last few enemies being Bloodrack Medusas, we managed to pull them down with our ROR crabs. At the cool cost of 6,500 lives, we managed to push back Marathi and the Dark Elves. While the South was distracted, we sent the Great Crabman across the pond, flattening 4 Dark Elf armies at once, and about a turn later, sieged our first Dark Elf city. What's the point of building giant walls if you are next to a giant hill? Collapsing the settlement earned us a holding in Nagaroth, where we could start to take over the Dark Elves. Plus, our other 3 armies sailed across to gain another port from Marathi. Looking back towards the old world, ignore the old world. Our economy was allowing us to field 8 armies at once, despite losing 4,700 in supply lines alone. The Crab Stack sat on Malekith, took even more settlements, and greeted our new enemy, the Tomb Kings. Well, Katep, I can't blame you for trying, but he can. With a foothold in Nagaron and a handle on the old world, the tendrils of Noctilus's patriotism had spread across the globe. We'd even achieved our long campaign victory, so really, what was left to stop us? Okay, that's pretty bad. A dwarven endgame crisis, with the dwarves being the most powerful faction. Now, I know that doesn't seem ideal, but I have good news. They are not alone. Apparently, I forgot to change my settings at the start, so every crisis begins on a long campaign victory. So now we have 10 turns to prepare. Did I say 10? No, I meant 1. Bringing back as many armies as possible and completely abandoning the old world, it was time to watch the supreme battle royale unfold. And if you thought the map looked disgusting now, dwarves, Tomb Kings, dwarves, plus all those other factions that will probably die to dwarves. Although strangely, the only armies I couldn't find were the Skaven ones, part of the Vermintide crisis. Even more so when I realized all the Skaven factions were back, but none of them were actually on the map. In terms of the other
Under
crisis
the
armies,
map,
we're
maybe.
lucky because Ulthuan spawned none of them. Our main issue is Mausilian and a Heinrich Kemmler who hit the gym. Plus, in the top left of the map is Grombrindal's faction. While there are other armies like Grimgor, Manfred, and Orion, we get to roleplay High Elves and not care. Sorry, Cetra, you're on your own. Passing the turn just once, I am now scared. With Mausilian coming across the channel, we evacuated Noctilus to defend Ulthuan. Unsurprisingly, the rest of the world had evolved backwards. There's the Kislev Chaos Ways, Kugat's Island Paradise, Dwarven Slovenia, Kairos JP Morgan Fate Weaver, and the Clan Angrund Oak of Ages. And that's not all. Katep's Mountain Disco, Dark Elf Grombrindal, the Skaven Navy, a Twilight Fan Club, Mean Girl Kemmler, Pacifism for the Peace God, the Undead Pirate Force, Jurassic Park 2, and Archaon. Still alive and wishing he was dead. But in the midst of the chaos, one thing stood out. Sigvald, who decided to show his face in northern Nagaroth. Sending Noctilus to catch him, we were intercepted by Bellicor, where we gained his legendary defeat trait and moved on. Sure enough, Sigvald was still around, so we could finally collect, allowing us to get his legendary defeat trait, which isn't showing up. But it's probably just hidden in the menu after Bellicor? Little known fact, there's actually a cap on the number of traits you can have. Right now, we have 30, and the cap is 30. Sigvald's trait would have put Noctilus to essentially 90% ward save, multiplying effective health by 1000%. And for reference, going back to that high elf battle where Noctilus killed everything alone, if we took all the damage he did to every unit combined, then inflicted it on him, he still would not die. Which would have happened if not for Bellicor. I will be back. But right now, there was something slightly more pressing. A nuclear bomb under my city. Ikit had made it to Ulthuan and infested it with the Under Empire. Naturally, his first inclination was domestic terrorism. Clearing the Undercity isn't difficult, but there's no way of knowing how many others there were spread around the world, so I went about putting detection in every settlement. Right now, though, our biggest threat was Grombrindal and the Northern Dwarves, because leaving Noctilus out on his own, for as invincible as Noctilus is, the rest of our army is less so, and losing Necrofex is fairly expensive. To that end, I spent the next half hour kiting while Noctilus killed their entire army. After 40 minutes and several dead Necrofex, we beat the dwarves. And immediately afterward, the Skaven crisis. Plotting underneath the earth, they'd finally arisen to take over a swamp. A desert. This dwarf's ass. In the middle of literally nowhere. Now, as much as I want to conquer the entire world and paint it hot pink, we've run into a bit of an issue.
lag. There's something like 500 armies on the map right now, and each turn takes a decade to pass. Call it laziness, call it decadence, but instead of fighting through every single province and forgetting what grass looks like, I have a better idea.
End it here.
One last fight. Our armies were near invincible, our land expansive, and of all the enemies we could go after, there was clearly one that stood out. So to make it fair, I disbanded every Necrofex we had and sailed Noctilus to our destination. Hello, Bellicor. May God have mercy. This God.
Oof.
Thanks to all of you, I've made the decision to go full-time. Now I can finally become the content creator I've always wanted to be, playing games like Dota 2, Minecraft, and the sickest reactions you've ever seen. So Noctilus, do you have anything left to say? Also, thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring the video. You can check out the game using the link in the description or the pinned comment below.
That was insanely well done. And of course, the Sword of Cain. It's not a problem, okay? Wielding it is not a problem. We consider that to be a feature. But guys, thank you so much for checking out this video. As always, please do make sure to go and subscribe to the Grim Kleaper. And of course, if you like this reaction, don't forget to hit that like button. And wish you all to have a wonderful day. See you guys in the next one. Bye. I just realized that I'm kind of dressed like an elf there. Might want to change some clothing.